Urbana is a unique place, and so we're going to start with a unique experience. Dr. Ruby Mendenhall, the Urbana Poet Laureate, is going to open tonight by reading one of her poems. Dr. Mendenhall is a professor of sociology, African American studies, urban and regional planning, gender and women's studies, and social work at the University of Illinois, and lots of other important appointments. But she's written over 100 poems, including one co-authored by the former Illinois Poet Laureate Ashanti Files, titled From Racism to Renaissance. So, Dr. Mendenhall, we welcome you to open our candidate forum tonight.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. As the mic falls, there we go. And I'm grateful to the City of Urbana and the Urbana Arts and Culture Program for selecting me as Poet Laureate. It has been a joy to be the Poet Laureate, to spend my time creating poems and then being able to share them, so I'm very grateful. And I actually have 3, and I just confirmed that it was okay to do 3. I didn't want to step outside of the bounds. So the first one is Two Sides of the Self, and it's a poem about sometimes in life when you feel hopeless, sometimes in life when you are not sure what to do, right? There's that one part of you, but then there's that other part that's resilient, that's all-knowing, so it's about that. When I am the storm, uprooting trees, you are the rainbow, promising a season of peace. When I am the dry earth, scorched and unproductive, you are a stream of water, quenching all who thirst. When I am a dancer, bound by culture, you are the ribbon cutter that unfolds me. When I am silenced and afraid for my life, you are a shield of protection, deflecting harm. When I sit with head bowed, you are the music of life, rhythmic and bold. When I am alone in the quiet of night, you are a soft whisper that holds me tight. When I am dissolving inside the cocoon, you are Rumi's ray of light entering the wound. When I am taking flight with broken wings, you are the beautiful voice that always sings. When I am timid and unsure of the next move, you are a wild dancer finding and enjoying your groove. When I am a daughter whose father has passed, you are the manifestation of his spirit inside the looking glass. When I am a mother loving Black boys as they become men, you are the wise one letting them go into the beauty of the wind. Thank you. And the second poem was created in celebration of me as I did the first kind of readings of my poetry. And at the Gallery Art Bar, thank you, so grateful. And it's called Stirring the Ancestral Pot. And that was the name of the drink that I said, I want it kind of warm, I want it kind of spicy, right? I want it kind of sweet. So it was all of that. So what I'm about to read is actually something that you can taste. So feel free to order it next time you go there. So it's called Stirring the Ancestral Pot. Drink to the beautiful moments when your soul soared above being human, when it was as free as the ruby red sun stirring the pot in the summer's heat. For your ancestors have transcended time with their golden whisper of love, saying, when life is as heavy as the tallest mountain, stir the ancestral pot for the strength to dissolve that solid earth. When the voice in your head is demanding what you cannot see, stir the ancestral pot until the rising smoke produces the miracles of alchemy. Chase your dreams from the U.S. to Jamaica's rolling hills. Lift the pot's lid and drink in the beauty from the ashes of hope, now still. Choose, decide to devour the spices set before you. Thank you. And now this last one is inspired by a poem, Where I'm From by George Ellen Lyon. And when I heard it, I was like, oh man, I wish I could write a poem like that. So this is me writing something, and it's where I'm from, and just kind of talks about my background, right? Descendants of people who have been enslaved in this country and their resiliency that I am here now, right? And what you're looking at. So it's called I Am From. I come from African mud, baked beautifully brown. I come from the deep Atlantic Ocean, waves splashing cargo that was extraordinary and alive. This cargo remains in my cells and in my brown skin, calling me home to Africa. I come from people who could fly above and below death to avoid captivity, kissed blood orange by the sun and strange fruit on poplar trees. I come from Black men with zero income. Census records disappeared their labor on land, at sea, and in their minds, fighting to remain dignified and free. I come from Black women tending gardens, bursting with the colors of joy and hope, baking sweet bread and frying Johnny cakes to eat with chitlins and other food cast at their feet. They bow down to get it, for their children need it to grow into their potential and for their souls to be free. I come from infinite creativity that has sculpted this nation, rhythm and blues, jazzy tunes, funky gospel, country rap, hip-hop spiritual, sorrow songs, disco reggae, soul pop. Dr. P says, and we won't stop. I come from intensity and immensity, emancipators and freedom fighters. I come from dreamers and futurists, setting fires until they were free. I come from people that declare Happy Juneteenth. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mendenhall, and that's a great, unique Urbana welcoming. Okay. Okay. Good evening. My name is Tricia Crowley of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the IMC, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This forum is for the Democratic primary election of February 21, 2025, for the office of the mayor, for the office of mayor of the city of Urbana. This forum will be available on votechampaign.org, which is the League's candidate guide, and also on the League's YouTube channel, links for both which can be found on the League's website. The forum will also be available on UPTV's YouTube page, which can be found on the City of Urbana's website. So if you don't catch all the ins and outs tonight, you can look at it again. I urge your friends to review the recording as well. I'll be the moderator for this forum. Artiste James and Ralph Trimble will be our timekeepers. Questions were solicited online to be sent to the League's candidate forum email address. For this forum, we received 90 questions. We are only likely to get to 10 or 11. For this reason, the question sorters have combined some of the citizens' questions to be able to cover as many topics as possible. Therefore, even if your question is asked, it's possible it won't be in the form you submitted it. Also, since online questions were given preference and more were submitted than we can get to, no questions will be received from the audience tonight. The order for the candidates is alphabetical. Therefore, Annie Adams will open and DeShawn Williams will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement, and then I will ask questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions, and at the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for closing. Candidates will kindly refrain from negative attacks on the other candidate and will speak only to what they plan to do if they are elected to office. And so let's begin. We're going to begin with an opening statement, and so Ms. Adams, would you like to open for 2 minutes?
Absolutely. Hello, my name is Annie Adams, and I'm running for mayor of Urbana. I want to thank the League of Women Voters, the IMC, and NAACP for hosting this forum. I also appreciate my opponent for participating, and I'm especially grateful to the Urbana Fire Department for assisting with tonight's event. I'm pretty familiar with this room. I've presented to City Council for nearly 10 years, beginning with Imbibe Urbana, when my co-founder Kristen Walters and I proposed Urbana First Fridays and the Mistletoe Market downtown. We brought thousands of people downtown, and I got a crash course on how to get things done in city government. I've served for 8 years on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission, advocating for safe streets. I've worked alongside city leaders and helped secure millions of dollars in grants to improve our roads, sidewalks, and bike paths. I believe that democracy thrives when we have open, honest discussions about the future of our city. Urbana is a diverse and dynamic place, and our leadership should embrace a variety of perspectives. In many ways, Urbana reminds me of my own family. My parents were teachers, and they adopted my siblings from around the world. I grew up in a household that embraced different cultures and ideas, just as Urbana does. That's why I'm running for mayor, to build a safe, affordable, and connected Urbana. Safe neighborhoods where everyone feels secure, affordable housing options for all income levels, connected, safe streets, sidewalks, and public spaces that bring our community together. I envision an Urbana that works for all of us. Thank you.
And Mr. Williams.
I'd like to first thank the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the IMC for bringing this forum to our community. I, too, want to thank my opponent for taking the time out of her busy schedule to be here with us as well. For the last 4 years, I have served our community as the Chief Deputy Treasurer for Champaign County, where my office oversees the stewardship of over $140 million of our taxpayer funds. Prior to that, I served over 16 years in the financial industry, in which I held almost every office there was within the bank, most recently as Vice President of Retail. One of the things I am most proud of is the work I did to help small businesses in our community get up and running. My heart for our youth that goes without saying. I've been able to connect my business and financial acumen with our community's youth through a youth entrepreneurship program called Kids Biz. I have also spent time as a one-to-one mentor and taught financial literacy and life skills to our at-risk youth through Novak Academy. You see, I believe in the importance of education, which is why I serve as the treasurer of the CU Schools Foundation, which we provide financial support and resources to our teachers within USD 116 and Unit 4 school districts. Last but not least, I am the husband to my beautiful wife, Tracy, and father to our 2 amazing children, Austin and Skylar. Skylar is gone somewhere else. But all of which are products of Urbana School District. I love our city, and it's an honor to have the opportunity to serve you all in this capacity. So I appreciate you, and let's get to it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Williams. For the first question, Ms. Adams, how might you balance the desire to maintain the historical nature of Urbana with creating affordable housing? And what specifically are your plans for increasing affordable housing?
So each neighborhood should remain and allow themselves to have their own personalities. So the historical neighborhood should be allowed to remain historical. I would like to increase affordable housing, though, and I would like to make sure that our transportation corridors are allowed to have more dense housing. I would also like to make sure that we had more housing in our empty lots that are in our downtown area. And I would like to make sure that we have people are allowed to have a choice of where they live, with whom they live, how they live, and how much money they spend on where they live. And I just want to also shout out to 200 South Vine, which is right next door here, which has been an incredibly successful housing, and I would like more housing like that in our city.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Williams, you want me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
How might you balance the desire to maintain the historical nature of Urbana with creating affordable housing? And what specifically are your plans for increasing affordable housing?
Sure. You know, we first need to understand what affordable housing is, you know, in our city. You know, typically that's defined as, you know, costing no more than 30%, you know, of a household's income. And you know, I want us to understand, too, that goes beyond just rental housing, right? You know, one thing for me as mayor, you know, I do want to put an emphasis on home ownership and ensuring that becomes affordable for folks as well. You know, through some of those initiatives, we will, you know, plan to relaunch the Urbana First Time Home Buyers Program. We're going to provide financial literacy and credit coaching to individuals wanting to seeking new housing and things of that nature. But, you know, as far as the development and things of that nature is concerned, we need to ensure that we're, you know, that we're reaching out to the community members to ensure that we don't, you know, impact the lifelong, you know, members of those communities as well. So.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams, first on the next question. We, the American Civil Liberties Union of Champaign County, recently endorsed a proposed ordinance that would require a public process to review and approve police surveillance technology. The ACU maintains that legally enforceable safeguards, including robust transparency, oversight, and accountability, must be in place to protect civil rights and civil liberties. Do you support requiring a public process, including city council approval for police surveillance technology? And do you support requiring the Urbana Police Department to produce an annual report on the use of surveillance technology?
The short answer is yes, right? You know, I had this conversation, you know, with Chief Boone over a year ago, you know, and he asked very similar questions, you know, that I would ask, right? Is it constitutional and legal? Do we have the moral obligation to use whatever technology is being presented? And do we have the support from city government and the community, right? I think that in regards to, you know, what the people are, you know, what they are recommending, it's simply just a matter of us ensuring that we cross our T's and dot our I's, right? That we provide the transparency needed, you know, to allow for the community to gain that trust, you know, with our police department and our city government again.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, do you want me to repeat the question? The American Civil Liberties Union recently endorsed a proposed ordinance to require a public process to review and approve police surveillance technology. And I'm going to skip part of this and go directly to, do you support requiring a public process, including city council approval for police surveillance technology? Do you support requiring the Urbana Police Department to produce an annual report on the use of surveillance technology?
So the short answer is, of course, I'm always happy when people put things forth on city council. This ordinance that was put forth would have stopped folks from being allowed to, the police, frankly, to have stopped folks from even being able to check license plates. So it went a little too far, and it would be good if we could have, if the staff had time to review the ordinance before it was presented to city council. It would have been good if our police force had been allowed to review it before it went to city council. I feel that it needs additional review. I as well am very interested in making sure we hear community feedback and making sure that we have guardrails, accountability, and we protect our civil liberties and rights in all matters such as this.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, The City of Urbana and the Urbana Police Department, in collaboration with a national consulting firm, recently conducted a comprehensive evaluation of Urbana's public safety delivery model. The recommendations for UPD included hiring more sworn police officers, considering alternative response options utilizing non-armed mental health professionals, and strengthening Urbana's Civilian Police Review Board. Please share your views of these specific recommendations related to the Urbana Police Department.
Currently, one of the problems that we are facing in the Urbana Police Department is we have 3 to 4 officers on duty at any time. They are responding to 26,000 calls for service a year. 52% of those are domestic. So yes, I am in favor of the alternative task force. Our police officers are going to houses 6 times, giving people a green sheet of paper that they don't know, what is that stressed out house going to do with that green sheet of paper? We need to do more wraparound services. We need to connect our police officers to alternative services that will allow other people to go to those houses than our police officers. Did I answer? Was I missing something?
Strengthening Urbana's Civilian Police Review Board.
Absolutely, let's do that. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, do you want me to repeat the question?
I'm so sorry to ask you to do that.
No, that's okay. These questions are very long because we just had to put more and more stuff in them to cover issues. So there was a comprehensive evaluation of Urbana's public safety delivery model and recommending hiring more police officers, considering alternative response options, utilizing non-armed mental health professionals, and strengthening Urbana's Civilian Review Board. So can you comment on those recommendations?
Yeah. Listen, as mayor, it's important to ensure that that our departments are staffed appropriately, right? Again, I spoke with Chief, over a year ago, and we talked about this and said, let's hire the minimum amount needed to ensure that we protect our community, and then we can take the time to assess the effects of the alternative response task force, right? And depending on those results, we can incrementally grow, the needs of our department, but more importantly, our community, right? That's the focus, our community. I have to say, we're not unique in the fact that our department is understaffed, right? That's a nationwide issue. It's important for us to ensure that we are getting into the communities to change folks' mindsets and their hearts so that they're not put in a position to have to commit crimes and such. And that's where I am wanting to, ensure that we focus a lot of our time and efforts in. As far as the community, the review board, absolutely. We again, need that transparency. The timer went off. Sorry, guys. We can finish that later. I'll be in the hall.
Okay. All right. Mr. Williams, in what specific ways might you work with the Urbana School District to help improve academic achievement for all? And would you continue the mayoral recognition program?
I'll answer the last part first. Absolutely, we will continue the mayoral recognition program. I attribute that to Ms. Kenita Fay, for bringing that to the community. We will absolutely encourage that. But, I often say, even with that program, right, 85%, of those students, that are receiving these acknowledgments, they need nothing more from us than a congratulations letter of recommendation, right? There's another 15% out in the community who is struggling, right? I met with a group of at-risk youth that, from the ages 11 to 17, that 11-year-old didn't want to participate, right? And I find out afterwards it was due to the fact that he couldn't read or write. Right, so he's overcompensating the lack of, from an educational standpoint, with being a tough guy in the community, right? So we will need to ensure that we focus our attention and our priorities on our youth and the development to keep them engaged and active in a positive light.
Ms. Adams, in what specific ways might you work with the Urbana School District to help improve academic achievement for all, and would you continue the mayoral recognition program?
So one of the problems I feel a lot of our youth feel is that they are not connected to our community. And I would definitely like to figure out ways to increase academic achievement. I am interested in engaging high school age residents and family by starting a teen council. I would also very much, I'd very much like to continue the Mayoral Recognition Program, which asks our students to do at least 30 hours of volunteer work. And another thing that I think would help with academic achievement is continuing with the school resource officers. This allows our students a space where they can go talk to somebody, or if they are experiencing something uncomfortable in their homes, they would have someone that they could talk to, and it helps keep our schools safe.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, given that Urbana's Central Business District has many large empty lots, will you commit to prioritize development and infill in the city center over redevelopment of residential neighborhoods? And do you have a plan for residential neighborhoods?
So vacant lots in our downtown, I would definitely like to fill our vacant lots in our downtown. We do have some calls out right now for proposals, and I'm very excited, and I'm hoping that we can get some folks interested that are viable. I'm interested in also growing our transportation corridors. I'm also interested in, as I've said, retaining the neighborhood characteristics. For single-family homes, construction costs are skyrocketing. I think we're all aware of that. There's a large decrease in the supply of homes for first-time home buyers. I would definitely like to continue Urbana's enterprise zone and incentivize new homes. And it's very important to make sure that we have affordable living for everybody in our city. And that is one of the core values that I have, is allow people to live how they want to live, where they want to live, and that they can afford to purchase the home that they wish to live in if that is something they would like to do.
Mr. Williams, given that Urbana's Central Business District has many large empty lots, will you commit to prioritize development and infill in the city center over redevelopment of residential neighborhoods? And the second part is, do you have a plan for residential development?
That's a good question. You know, as far as the new development and things of that nature is concerned, yes, I would support it, you know, especially considering, you know, that it's, you know, in the properly zoned, you know, space for new development. But, you know, my concern is actually the percentage of properties owned, you know, by folks who live outside of the county. You know, understanding that 2/3 of housing, you know, in Urbana right now it's rental. You know, so yes, I support new development, you know, of land, you know, that's zoned for it, but we have to ensure that we're not removing, as I said earlier, the integrity, you know, of the neighborhoods that are directly impacting the lifelong residents. You know, we have to understand when we are looking at new development, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, we will ensure that we seek community input, because at the end of the day, they are the experts in their neighborhood. So that's the way we will move forward in that regard.
Mr. Williams, what in your professional or personal background has prepared you for this leadership role? And for instance, what direct experience have you had with municipal government, working with law enforcement, zoning, responding to the needs of marginalized citizens, and responding to citizens' concern, or managing staff? Lots of things in there if you want me to repeat it. Yeah.
I mean, so here's the thing. My current role, you know, right now is in county government. I'm the chief deputy treasurer for Champaign County, right? So that puts me in direct line of fire sometimes, you know, with the ins and outs of both municipal and you know, county government in itself, right? But prior to that, as I mentioned in my intro, I was vice president of retail for Busey Bank. I try not to say the name, but for Busey Bank. But, you know, I oversaw multiple locations with a number of staff that I, you know, was responsible for, you know, the development and the management of, you know, and that has been, you know, that's been the core of my professional surroundings. Even now, you know, with my staff, I have an amazing staff, you know, within the county building, and it's allowed for us to, you know, get to this point that we are here currently. I've served, and I currently serve on multiple boards and commissions within the community as well that, I'll finish that again in the hallway.
Ms. Adams, what in your professional or personal background has prepared you to be in this leadership role? For instance, direct experience with Urbana or other municipal government, zoning, working with law enforcement, or responding to the needs of marginalized citizens, responding to citizens' concerns, or managing staff.
So the mayor is a leadership role, and the mayor is the chief executive officer. The mayor will have 16 executive leadership positions that they oversee, and they will be managing budgets, safety, housing, infrastructure, and the sustainability of our city. I have spent 8 years on the Urbana Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission, and that deals with budgets, that deals with the city, that deals with figuring out how government works. It deals with trying to figure out how do you get grants, where does the money come from, who's paying for what. I have managed, when I was a much younger person, I'm about 20 years older than Mr. Williams. When I was a much younger person, I look great, he said, yeah. I'll take it. I managed a warehouse. I've done accounts receivable, accounts payable. I've had a wide variety of jobs throughout my life, which I think makes me a very good candidate for this position.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, what will you do to protect the legal rights of immigrants in Urbana, both those here legally and the undocumented, and how will you balance this obligation against the threat of prosecution and lost federal funding?
That is a great question. We have one of the things that about Urbana that's good to know is 1 in 5 Urbana residents is an immigrant. They are rightfully concerned about the current administration and the threats that the current administration has made. What I would really like to send the message home is, please remain calm. Do not make any sudden changes. The Urbana Police Department will not, cannot, it is state law, ask about your immigration status. We are a welcoming city. You are safe here. And as a city, we need to make sure that we care for one another and that we move forward together in a powerful and united way.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, what will you do to protect the legal rights of immigrants, those here both legally and undocumented, and how will you balance this obligation against the threat of prosecution and lost federal funding?
Thank you to whoever asked that question, especially considering the time that we're in now. I have no intent, obviously on breaking, the law, but I will say under my leadership, we will protect our immigrant brothers and sisters. I am of the belief that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Supremacy of any kind will not be tolerated. And as mayor, I'll be honest with you, if I get notified of unjust behavior of any kind, folks will be held accountable. And that's just, it's very simple, in that regard. We will absolutely do everything in our power to ensure that we protect our immigrant brothers and sisters.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, this is a question concerning discrimination, but it has 2 different parts, so if you could address both. On January 9th this year, a trans woman was found dead in an Urbana park from hypothermia. According to reports, she avoided shelters because of harassment. What will you do to support the trans community? And a second part, what are your plans to address the marked increase in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim hate in our community?
I will absolutely support the trans community. There's no question about that. Again, it goes back to what I said. We will protect our brothers and sisters within this community. There's no in between, right? Again, as I said, even earlier, as far as the second portion, right? Supremacy of any kind will not be tolerated in our city. I can tell, my kid's pediatrician, is of Palestinian descent, right? My godmother, who is one of my favorite people in the world, is a fair-skinned Jewish woman. So we have to understand that locally, as far as our community is concerned, community support, peaceful dialogue, And empathy goes a long way, in bridging the divides, within our community. And that is something that I know for a fact that we can control locally here. So, again, we will ensure that we protect our brothers and sisters within our community.
Okay, Ms. Adams. This is a question with two parts concerning discrimination. On January 9th this year, a trans woman was found dead in an Urbana park from hypothermia. According to reports, she avoided shelters because of harassment. What will you do to support the trans community? And second, what are your plans to address the marked increase in anti-Palestinian, anti-Arab, and anti-Muslim hate in our community?
One of the problems a lot of people face if they are trans is their family rejects them. There's a young lady in my life whose family has rejected her, and it's very hard to see and it's very hard to experience because there is nothing wrong with her. And that would be the first thing I would like to say. There is nothing wrong with you. We are all different in our own special way, and we should all be welcomed and accepted to be exactly who we are. The second thing is anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, anti-Jewish. None of it is acceptable. We, in the next 4 years, are going to have to act together. We are going to have to come together. Everyone, regardless of your race, gender, age, income, sexuality, immigration status, should feel secure in Urbana.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, many companies and the federal government are removing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Do you plan to change any DEI programs and processes in Urbana?
So I work at the University of Illinois, and this has been an ongoing discussion, honestly, for many years. We've been seeing this come down the pipeline for many years. And we have talked about it, and we have tried to address it in the best way that we can. I would like to reiterate, though, that the best way to approach these problems at this moment is to remain calm and to not make any changes. We should definitely be encouraging diversity, equity, and inclusion. We should be broadening participation for everybody. We should make sure in our hiring practices that we are hiring equitably. We should integrate racial equity in everything the city does, from housing to transportation to social health and the environment.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, many companies and the federal government are removing DEI programs. Do you plan any change to any DEI programs and processes in Urbana?
Sure. Well, honestly, me being someone that knows knows firsthand experience what it feels like to be considered unqualified due to the color of my skin, I know what that feels like. So as far as I'm concerned, I will ensure that we not just, it's not just enough to say that we want diversity, right? It's not just enough to say that we want these things in the workplace. We have to actively engage and go where diverse candidates are, right? And so as far as I'm concerned, that is absolutely something that we will prioritize and ensuring that we are leading the way. That's going to be the thing. The city of Urbana will be leaders in everything that we do, specifically and especially in regards to DEI and ensure that we don't allow for the federal government to dictate how we move as far as the city is concerned.
Mr. Williams, the Urbana budget is growing faster than the tax revenues. How will you approach this problem when pursuing new projects that you want to support? And are lower property taxes any part of this plan?
That's a great question. Listen, I want to make something, clear kind of right out the gate. All right, the mayor can't necessarily lower property taxes, right, without cutting a bunch of services, and I don't think that anyone in here wants that to take place. More sales revenue is one of the only true ways, that we can, ensure that we're lowering property taxes. So we have to really truly get serious about the development of our spaces, right? Philo Road, Business District, High Cross Road, Lincoln Ave, and even Cunningham. We have to actively seek and engage new businesses. And truthfully, my banking experience has allowed for me to know what it takes to not only get a business up and running, but to understand how to ensure that it's sustainable and that it grows, which I think that will, in return, answer our question.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, the Urbana budget is growing faster than its tax revenues. How will you approach this problem when pursuing new projects that you want to support? And are lower property taxes any part of your plan?
So one of the things that we need to be aware of is that in 1970, the city of Urbana was 6 square miles with 34,000 people. Right now, in 2020, it's 12 square miles with 38,000 people. And currently, 31% of our properties are off the tax rolls. They are tax exempt. So that is one thing that we have to be very aware of. In addition, the Urbana budget is very small. It's about $83 million. So that is another thing we have to be aware of. I would love to lower property taxes. The way we could lower, the city of Urbana has not raised property taxes in 8 years. One way we could lower property taxes was by increasing our population, because we have doubled our land mass, which increases the amount of infrastructure that we have to take care of. So we're now trying to take care of 12 square miles with an additional 4,000 people. So we need to increase the number of businesses that are here and the number of people that are living here.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, family support services, mental health, domestic violence prevention, substance abuse, and trauma recovery are vital for community well-being. What are your plans to either increase funding for family service agencies, particularly those serving Black and underrepresented populations? And do you have any plans to increase funding for Black-led organizations?
I think, again, we have to look at the city budget, and we have to understand that the city budget shares money with a wide variety of resources. So the city did give $10 million of ARPA COVID relief funds, which are now no longer accessible to us. Well, they're still being doled out for a little bit of time. But we did give money to we gave about $10 million to a wide variety of projects in the city. So going forward, we're going to have to be fiscally conservative and try to figure out how we're going to proceed to take care of these different items in our community. In addition, though, I do think that it will be part of the alternative task force to make sure that these different organizations are funded and that they're functional and that they are successful. I cannot tell you today how I would make that plan, but it's definitely something we need to be aware of, because without those organizations and without supporting those communities, we are not going to have a healthy community.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, family support services, mental health, domestic violence prevention, substance abuse treatment, and trauma recovery are vital for community well-being. What are your plans to increase funding for family service agencies, if so, and particularly those serving Black and underrepresented populations? And do you have plans to increase funding for Black-led organizations?
Considering the importance, of those type of organizations, and honestly, me having been a product of some of those, organizations, I understand the importance of needing the funding, right? It's clear. I think it's no secret. We understand that as far as the federal government's concerned, they attempted to freeze a lot of these fundings, a lot of the funding and the resources, right? And I think that's where, the relationships that, I've built already, with our state legislators, right, and the confidence that I have in our governor, to fight for us, from the state standpoint, to ensure that we have the resources needed to provide the funding for these organizations. I think it's going to be vital, and that is something that I bring to the office on day one.
Mr. Williams, how do you hope to communicate effectively with city residents?
Yeah, honestly, that's one of those things where it's not a matter of what I plan to do. It's going to be a continuation of what we've been, doing. Specifically over the last 2.5 years now, I announced my candidacy, on December 15, 2022. And the reason behind that was so that I could ensure that I earned the trust of the community, right? So that they could have an opportunity to know who I am, know the man, know the husband, know the father, know the county, public servant, and for them to be able to, by the time February 25th came, they knew exactly who they were getting, and so as far as, I'm concerned, it's going to be a continuation to ensure that I am in the faces of our community members, not just a select group, but every individual that calls Urbana home. We will ensure that we continue to build that relationship.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, how do you hope to communicate effectively with city residents?
I am a communications professional, and I'm sure, like a lot of you, have sometimes been a little frustrated with the communication that you receive from the city. The city has one full-time communicator who is currently doing both what you'd call internal communications and external communications. One thing that I would really like to have happen it would be emergency U alerts. And what that would do is it would send you informed, accurate, and on-time information that would tell you that there are emergencies in your neighborhood. It would tell you about city services. It would let you know when leaf pickup is happening. It would also let you know when street closures are happening. That would be one thing that I think would help the community be connected, and it would cut down on a lot of misinformation that is often shared among other people. That would just be one strategy. There are many more that I'd love to employ.
Thank you. Ms. Adams, how will you ensure transparency in your administration?
One thing I have found as a resident of this city is there's a lot of rumors. People will often start saying something, and as a person who's served on a commission or presented to the city or has been pretty involved in the city for the last 10 years, I'll just be like, that's not true. But people don't know it. They don't quite know how city works. They don't know how city government operates. They don't understand sort of the ticky-tackness of it. They don't know that, like, for example, like the Lincoln Avenue corridor study is literally just a study right now. And what's going to happen is after that study, we are going to have to go out and we're going to have to find funding. So it's going to be many years before we actually see the Lincoln corridor be fixed. But people start rumors and it's not good. So one thing I would really like to make sure is that we're always transparent, we're clear, we're forthright, and we're communicating clearly what is going on and what your role is as a citizen.
How will you ensure transparency in your administration?
Sure, and I can appreciate what Annie said, even in that. It's one of those things where, again, folks that know me and folks who have worked with me, from the county, through the bank, know that, transparency is key, for me. And I ensure that takes place by, having open dialogue and communication, right? I ensure that I do that by not running from the tough conversations, right? I think one of my greatest strengths is being able to disagree with someone while still listening to them and understanding their concerns and us figuring out middle ground to walk side by side to achieve what the goal is at hand. And I think that a lot of the community members, from what I've heard as I'm out talking to folks, is that they just simply want to understand what's taking place. They want to be heard, right? So for me, it's going to ensure that we bring everyone to the table before decisions are being made, before things are taking place, to ensure that everyone is fully aware of what's happening.
Mr. Williams, it costs on the order of $100,000 to train new policemen. How would you stop the steady stream of newly trained police officers from leaving the city of Urbana for Champaign, Savoy, Rantoul, and the university and other locations, and leaving Urbana short-staffed and demoralized?
Yeah, so, I think one of the things, and again, I've had, multiple conversations. I don't mean to keep bringing up the chief, and I apologize. But I will say I've had multiple conversations with him, right? And at the end of the day, we have to get the department and the staff, we have to get folks in general, not just the police department, but we have to get people excited to be back at work. right? We have to get people excited to want to be a part of the Urbana Police Department or the Urbana City Council, the Urbana City staff, right? And that can only come with respect, right? And that starts at the top, right? So we are going to continue to work side by side with our police chief to ensure that his staff, his crew, are feeling valued and supported. You know, at the same time, again, it goes back to that transparency piece. We have to get folks to understand the concerns and the struggles, right, on both ends, both the police department as well as what the community is feeling, you know, and I think that bringing those two together is what will help take us to that next level.
Ms. Adams, it costs on the order of $100,000 to train new police people. How would you stop the steady stream of newly trained police officers from leaving the city of Urbana for Champaign, Savoy, Rantoul University, and other locations, leaving Urbana short-staffed and demoralized?
So I as well have had numerous conversations with the chief. He is wonderful to talk to. He is very supportive of his staff, and he has a lot of solutions. So it does cost $100,000 to train a police. It is over a year process before somebody can go out on the road by themselves to answer one of the 26,000 calls to service. We, since I started running, have lost 5 to 6 officers, so we're losing them at a rapid pace. Our officers are interested in policing differently than the last generation policed. Our officers are interested in using new technologies to help them be more efficient and effective. Our officers also are interested in compensation. So there was just a presentation that was given at City Council where they shared the compensation that is happening at other communities. And this is one of the reasons why they will come here, we will train them, we will spend $100,000 of city resources, and then they will go to another space, which is not good because we need trained officers who have been here for multiple years.
And this is going to be the last question, then we're going on for closing. And I've observed Urbana, this is for Ms. Adams, I've observed Urbana struggling due to a lack of a comprehensive waste management program, and people in my neighborhood are burning trash in indoor fireplaces and even in fire pits in their front yards, releasing toxic fumes into the air we breathe and spreading toxic ash. And I believe the current system of private trash collection creates a serious problem. How would you prioritize the development of a comprehensive waste collection program that addresses the needs of all Urbana residents and promotes a cleaner, healthier community?
This has been on my want and to-do list since I moved here. The first house we lived in was a small house over by Huaraches. It was 700 square feet. We put the bedroom in the front room, and we had to move the bedroom from there. Why? Because of the trucks, the trash trucks coming with their blinky lights and their loud sounds. And when you're living in a small house like that, that is not a great thing. So what I'm really interested in, also, those trucks are some of the heaviest trucks on our roads. They're ripping up our streets. In addition, they're not very safe, and it's an old-timey system that we have. What I would like to move us towards would be one truck, one person driving the truck, and one arm. And that's an automated arm that dumps the trash. I've talked to the Public Works, and they are working on trying to apply for a grant to start studying this and seeing if we can move towards it, because I'd also love if we could get composting thrown in there. So I am very excited about this, and I would love to see if we could make it happen.
Mr. Williams. I've observed Urbana struggling due to a lack of a comprehensive waste management program, which leads to people burning trash in indoor fireplaces and releasing toxic fumes into the air and toxic ash, and that the current system, I believe the current system of private trash collection creates a serious problem. How would you prioritize the development of a comprehensive waste collection program that addresses the needs of all Urbana residents and promotes a healthier community?
Sure. Yeah, that is definitely something that has come up, you know, in conversations that I've had as well, you know, with the Public Works Director. You know, and truth of the matter is, I too get tired of the multiple trash trucks, garbage trucks, in and out of the streets, and having, trash cans on the sides of the lots almost every day, right? So, yes, I agree with the need to potentially decrease, the amounts of trucks, going up and down the streets, at any given time. I think it's a lot easier said than done, right? So, understanding that we will need to work directly, with our Public Works Department and ensure that we can come up with a comprehensive plan to, ensure that we're doing this the right way, so.
Thank you. So now we're going to go to closing statements. Each of you will have 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we're going to start with Ms. Adams.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to recognize the incredible efforts our educators, community leaders, and volunteers, neighborhood association, PTAs, sports, and arts boosters, Urbana Park District, the Urbana Free Library, the Rotary Club of Urbana, and so many others. You do so much to improve our city. I see you, and I'm ready to work with you to make Urbana an even better place for everyone. Urbana's at a pivotal moment. Our city is rich with amazing people, vibrant arts, and diverse cultures. But like many communities, we face challenges that demand unity and action. As the nation navigates uncertainty, we must remain steady, working together, coordinating with our neighbors, and staying true to our values while preserving the unique spirit that makes Urbana strong. We made it through the pandemic together. We will make it through this. We know how to do it. I'm running for mayor because I believe we can create a safe, affordable, and connected Urbana together. I have a plan. With responsible stewardship, we can create a safer Urbana by advancing equity and fully equipping the Urbana Police Department for community-focused policing. An affordable Urbana by growing city revenue, responsibly lowering property taxes, and expanding affordable housing. A more connected Urbana by repairing streets, adding crosswalks, and improving sidewalks. I've lived here for 10 years. I've done the work. Our youth are counting on us. Our small businesses are counting on us. Our neighbors are counting on us. And we must rise to meet that challenge. I humbly ask you for your vote on February 25th. Let's move Urbana forward together. Thank you.
Mr. Williams.
I again want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters, Ms. Trish, the NAACP, and the IMC for again bringing this forum to our community. Listen, through my community involvement, I've heard too many times from neighbors who feel forgotten by some of our political leaders. Their concerns are my concerns, and I'm committed to being a leader who mirrors the priorities of our residents. Tonight, I stand before you as a candidate for mayor of Urbana, because I believe my lifetime of experience is exactly what this city needs. Experience I will use to improve the lives of everyone who calls Urbana home. I will be a voice for the voiceless, and that will never stop. Before I close, again, I want to give a heartfelt thank you to my amazing wife, Tracy, our 2 wonderful children, Austin and Skylar. I love my family, so let's be very clear, right? To my parents, who are here with us tonight, who taught me to always reach for the moon, because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. To my in-laws, to my family and friends, and to my team, thank you for showing me what love looks like and hard work looks like through their actions. And to the city of Urbana, thank you for this opportunity to serve you all. And I look forward to working together to build a brighter future for each and every one of us. God bless you all. Have a great night.
Thank you. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. I'd like to also thank City of Urbana staff. They've been very helpful in the setup, and to Dr. Ruby Mendenhall, who started out our event with a unique Urbana flavor. Thanks to the NAACP and the IMC, and to our candidates for coming. Again, the recording can be found on votechampaign.org and the League's YouTube channel and on UPTV. Special thanks to artist James and Ralph Trimble for timing. And just a reminder, it's not too late to register and vote. You can register all the way up to Election Day and vote that day. Information is available on the League's website and the County Clerk's website, and so please vote. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Tricia Crowley of the League of Women Voters of Champaign County. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and the IMC, I welcome you to tonight's candidate forum. This forum is for the Democratic primary election on February 25th, 2025, for the office of the City of Urbana Ward 6 Council Member. Recording of this forum will be available on votechampaign.org, which is the League's candidate guide, and also the League's YouTube channel, links for both of which can be found on the League's website, lwvchampaigncounty.org. The forum will also be available on UPTV's YouTube page, which can be found from the City of Urbana website. I will be the moderator for this forum. Artis James and Ralph Trimble will be our timekeepers. Questions were solicited online to be sent to the League's candidate forum email address. From this forum, we received 19 questions. We're only likely to get to 10 to 12. For this reason, the question sorters have combined some citizens' questions to be able to cover as many topics as possible. Therefore, even if your question is asked, it is possible it will not be in the form you submitted. Also, since online questions were given preference and more were submitted than we can get to, no questions will be received from the audience tonight. The order for candidates is alphabetical, and therefore William Colbrook will open and Grace Wilkens will close. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. I'll then ask questions, and each candidate will have 1 minute to answer these questions. At the end, each candidate will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Candidates will kindly refrain from negative attacks and will speak only to what they plan to do if elected to office. So we'll begin. Mr. Colbert, your opening statement.
Good evening. My name is Bill Colbrook, and I'm running to serve as the City of Urbana Alderman for Ward 6. I would like to thank everyone who is here and those who are watching at home. Thank you to everyone who made this candidate forum possible, including the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, the NAACP Champaign County Branch, and the IMC. I also thank my opponent for her willingness to serve. Finally, I want to thank my dear wife, my family, and volunteers for their unwavering support. I am running for alderman because I love Urbana and want to ensure our government works well for all residents. My wife and I have called Urbana home for nearly 20 years, raising our children here to benefit from its excellent schools and incredible diversity. Service has always been central to my life. I hold a master's degree in public administration with a focus on government and policy, and have 35 years of public service, including Director of Public Safety at Parkland College. When residents asked me to run, I stepped forward because Urbana deserves leadership that listens, cares, and acts. Over the past few months, I've met with residents and identified 4 key priorities, and you'll hear more about those tonight. Community safety. Everyone, regardless of their background, should be safe. Better infrastructure. We must fix potholes, calm traffic, and improve street safety. And affordable housing. Urbana needs more diverse and affordable housing options. And economic development. Revitalizing Philo Road, supporting local businesses, and expanding access to local food sources are key. I look forward to discussing our visions for Urbana. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. Wilkens.
Thank you to our host tonight and the Urbana Poet Laureate and those of you watching and who provided questions for us tonight. I'm Grace Wilken, and I'm running for Ward 6 council position because I believe that our residents deserve a representative who will engage with them, listen to their input, and take a stand to represent their best interests. As a community, we often don't agree and we have different perspectives, and I think it's essential to listen to and consider all input from our community. I respond to inquiries and help residents navigate the system that, to have their voices heard, even if we disagree. I grew up in Champaign, Urbana, and attended public schools in Champaign and Head Start in Urbana. My family first moved to Urbana 2 blocks down the street on Vine Street to a small apartment when I was 4 months old. I've since earned bachelor's and master's degrees in Central Illinois universities and have volunteered in various nonprofit and community organizations in CU. I have over 10 years of teaching experience from preschool public schools to university level and over 6 years of science research experience, which is what I do currently. I became more engaged in our local government around 2020 with the movement for social justice and accountability for established structures. I followed and gave input at city council meetings and became a member of the Urbana Sustainability Advisory Commission before I ran for council office in 2021. I originally ran on the 3 principles of sustainability: community well-being, financial responsibility, and environmental resiliency. I still stand by those principles, and I've also learned more about the importance of public engagement, responsible and transparent government, and about the challenging and wonderful aspects of our Urbana community. I'm running for council again to serve as your representative for Ward 6 to continue to work for a transparent, engaged, and responsible government.
Thank you. Our first question, and this one actually I wrote myself. So to give our listeners some context for these questions and answers, can you describe the boundaries and character of Ward 6? Mr. Colbrook.
The physical boundaries are roughly Philo Road, north-south, and then everything east of that, all the way to the south of the city, and to the east all the way to High Cross Road, and to the north, at least along Philo Road, it goes up to Washington Street. As you come east on Washington Street, it kind of follows through the Lehrman corridor, and then it comes down to Michigan east-west. So Michigan east-west south is the northern boundaries. The character is quite diverse. There is housing, rental housing, multi-unit housing, the traditional housing, houses built in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and then there is new development in an area that I live in the southeast part of town. So the diversity is as wide in Ward 6 as it is anywhere in the city.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkins, can you give our listeners some context for these questions and answers? Can you describe the boundaries and character of Ward 6?
Yes, thank you. I think that the previous answers summed up the boundaries well, east of Philo and south of Washington, with some exceptions. And also note that the map has changed since the previous election cycle. So Ward 6 geographically shrunk some since the last time around. So please check the ward map if you're not sure if you're still in Ward 6. I'd say the character is a diverse mix of neighborhoods, ranging from various infrastructure and income levels. We have some community groups in the area, the Southeast Urbana Neighborhood Group, and then we have various neighborhoods like Savannah Green, the Lehrman Community, Stone Creek, Eagle Ridge, and much more. I think that these all have unique characters, and the Philo Road business corridor is something that I think is has an impact on a lot of Ward 6. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is for Ms. Wilkins. Would you vote for implementation of automatic license plate readers in Urbana? And if so, what kinds of conditions in implementation and for reporting back to council would you require?
Thank you. Automatic license plate readers is an issue that's been discussed in Urbana in these council chambers for over 3 years. I've been involved in those conversations and have a lot of thoughts on them. I don't think I can clarify all in 1 minute, but I think the gist of it is that we need public engagement in this process, we need council approval, and we need policies and reporting standards that are clearly laid out to protect residents. And I think unless we have any of those things in place and we fully consider the technologies and their impacts, that we really need to do that first before moving forward with any more expenses that could potentially put a lot of our residents at risk.
Mr. Colbrook, would you vote for the implementation of automated license plate readers in Urbana? And if so, what kinds of conditions in implementation and for reporting back to council would you require?
Yes, I'm a strong proponent of the automatic license plate or reader technology. With 35 years in law enforcement, I can speak for days of the evolution of technology in policing. When I first started in 1986, the best information we had was a 3x5 card system listing the residents and their addresses and contact information. The technology has just grown leaps and bounds in that 35-year period. Specifically, the ALPRs, they improve public safety. They quickly identify stolen vehicles, suspects, and missing persons. It increases efficiency because the automatic license plates checks that frees up officers to focus on other priorities, and it reduces mistakes because the officers can just focus on the data. The license plate reader is a data-driven system, and it takes away the impartiality of it. Urbana has not implemented it.
You're done. Okay. Mr. Colbert, here's a question was submitted. Many of the people on my block in Ward 6 have issues with flooded yards. What would you do to help them?
So actually flooding is an issue throughout Illinois. I was blessed when I was with the state of Illinois to partner with our government partners from Poland on a flooding exercise. And the topography of Poland is very similar to the topography of Illinois. We have lots of rivers and streams that get swollen and cause flooding. All it takes is to watch the news a couple months ago to find out our residents in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, North Florida that didn't think that they were in the flood zone. They realized quickly they were. I was also a part of the Regional Planning Commission committee that helped study the floodplains in Illinois. So it's important to study it, to read the data, and to give information and do public education so residents know if they're in a floodplain or not.
Ms. Wilkins, many of the people on my block in Ward 6 have reported issues with flooded yards. What would you do to help them?
Thank you. I think we definitely need resilient and green infrastructure practices in place. City staff did put in an ARPA application quite a few years ago, which was not funded with ARPA money, that was to have more green stormwater infrastructure in place. That's something that I continue to support us using other funds for, those kinds of projects as part of our regular city infrastructure. I also put in the budget and has finally implemented a Sustaining Urbana Neighborhoods Grant, which is an environmental grant program, at least one of which has to do with rain garden construction and water management with environmentally friendly and community building ways. I definitely recognize the seriousness of flooding and climate change and the need for resilient communities. Southeast Appalachia is a place close to my heart, and I experienced with them a few years ago some of the devastating floods that happened. So I absolutely agree with the severity and the need for resilient infrastructure.
Thank you. Here's a question that's submitted. I am a registered voter in Ward 6. I have seen both Ward 6 candidates and mayoral candidates list affordable housing as a goal. I would like to hear more details on what you envision beyond ideals when you say affordable housing.
Thank you. Housing and affordable housing and access is an essential need, obviously, for all human beings. And unfortunately, there are many things outside of direct city control. The city does not dictate rent market, the housing market, and there are a lot of things outside of that control. I think things that the city can and should do are things like enforcing our non-discrimination ordinance in housing so that people can use the vouchers that they have the right to use and be accepted in decent housing. I think we also need to address systemic issues of wage levels, housing options, and continue with government-supported affordable housing projects.
Thank you. Mr. Colbrook. I am a registered voter in Ward 6. I've seen both Ward 6 candidates and mayoral candidates list affordable housing as a goal. I would like to hear more details on what you envision beyond ideals when you say affordable housing.
This actually strikes incredibly close to me and my wife. Our grandkids are now to the age where they're wanting to leave the nest and they're looking for affordable housing. We know the struggle that they have in trying to find places that they possibly could rent. But I would encourage smart development. I'd promote zoning policies that allow diverse housing types such as accessory dwelling units and duplexes to increase affordability. Increase housing supply. I would work with developers or encourage the staff to work with developers and nonprofits to build more affordable housing options, including multifamily units and mixed income developments. And I would support renters and homeowners. I'd advocate for rental assistance programs, first-time home buyer incentives such as Think Urbana. And I would strengthen community partnerships. I'd collaborate with local organizations to provide housing resources, financial literacy programs, and support for those at risk for homelessness.
Thank you. Mr. Colbrook, all candidates have indicated some level of support for alternative response for 911 calls. Please explain your vision for implementation, who would operate it, how would it be funded, and how would it link to meeting people's material needs?
Once again, I've got direct experience in this. I'm going to bring you back to 1986 when I was a patrolman on Pontiac Police Department. Got a call that somebody needed assistance. A woman was having a mental health breakdown, and she was actually beating her daughter with, if we remember, the phone that hung on the wall. I responded to that call, and I spent hours and hours and hours working with that woman, trying to get her to a place of safety. It's important to know that the police officers are skilled at a lot of things, but what they need is alternatives, because there's experts in the field that could actually serve the residents in some of these areas better. I think it should be operated within the police department. The funding should be done directly through the city budget, and the way it would affect the material needs, instead of just getting a police officer who's skilled at a lot of things, you would actually get a subject matter expert with you at the call or quickly afterwards to give them expert guidance and leadership for their issue.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkins, all candidates have indicated some level of support for alternative response for 911. Please explain your vision for implementation, who would operate it, how it would be funded, and how you would link it to meeting people's material needs.
Thank you. A lot of this is still to be determined with our task force that is tasked with creating, designing some recommendations for the city. So a lot of it is still a work in progress that has been in the works for quite a few years. The idea, in my opinion, would be that this alternative response force would add the appropriate professional to certain calls for service, making emergency response safer for our vulnerable community members and relieving the workload for our police officers. I have personally been in situations too many times with someone in a mental health crisis and have not called the police out of fear for harm of the individual while they're in that state of crisis. And I think that this, ideally in my mind, is that alternative so that people can feel safe to reach out for the help that they need that is the appropriate health. If someone's having a health crisis, you send medical doctors. If someone's having a mental health crisis, you need to send medical professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a fair housing question. What will you do to stop violations of fair housing laws by landlords? Given that years of landlord education by the city and township have not stopped discriminatory practices amongst some landlords, would you support the following? Using fines, such as starting with a warning and then stepping up penalties for repeat violations. Testing, which means having residents with similar qualifications attempt to seek housing with and without a voucher. Ms. Wilkins.
Yes, I absolutely support enforcing our non-discrimination ordinance in Urbana that applies to housing, employment, and a lot of other areas of society. I support the idea of fines, testing, and I wasn't keeping up with your question there, but I support all of those mechanisms. I was a part of drafting a resolution reaffirming our non-discrimination and clarifying that landlords do not have the right to discriminate on renters or anyone for housing, especially from their source of income, which has been a misunderstanding in some of the enforcement here. So I think it's really important to be clear on what our laws are and enforce them in a fair process and proactively to ensure that people can use the vouchers that they have the right and the need to use to find the housing that they need. That also helps relieve a lot of our other services like temporary housing, emergency housing, housing and homeless shelters when we can get people in the right housing that they can afford for the long term to have independent living. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Colbrook, what will you do to stop violations of fair housing law by landlords? Given that years of landlord education by the city and township has not stopped discriminatory practices amongst some landlords, would you support the following? Using fines, such as starting with a warning and then stepping up penalties for repeat violations, testing, which means having residents with similar qualifications attempt to seek housing with and without a voucher.
Well, if we accept the premise that that the communication and other things that have been tried before are not working, there's no reason to stop communication. You continue to communicate. You continue to educate the landlords of what the law is. So I would absolutely support enforcing the fair housing laws in the city of Urbana. I do agree that that fines are acceptable. You know, given that somebody has possibly been given a written warning, and then you know, step those enforcement efforts up. In no way, shape, or form should a resident be tested on their income level, their criminal background, the color of their skin, or their economic status. You know, it's a fundamental right for housing, and the city of Urbana should do everything in their power to ensure that the fair housing laws are enforced.
Mr. Colbert, what do you feel will be the greatest challenge that you'll face in this office?
What was the last part of the greatest challenge of what?
In this office?
Oh, in the office. Great question. I'm humble, but I've got a lot of confidence as well. The challenges that we have are really not of our making. I believe that collectively the city council can band together. We can partner with city staff. We can partner with obviously the public, and we can literally solve any problem that's before us. It takes respectful dialogue. It takes being humble in your position. Respect is given and trust is earned. You lead with respect and make sure that that the person that you're talking to understands that they are the most important person in the world that you're talking to at that moment. And then through your words, deeds, and actions, you earn that trust back from the community.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkins, what do you feel will be the greatest challenge that you face in the office?
I think one of the greatest challenges is the pace of things moving, that things move slowly. And myself and a lot of residents and a lot of people in our community want to see certain things happen. And the reality that things move slowly in government for various reasons. So I think for me, that's been a challenge of having some patience and having the persistence and diligence to stick through efforts, to see them through in years-long process. After 4 years, I have finally seen some of the accomplishments of some of the efforts that have started and that have taken years of dedication to see into fruition. So I'd say for me, some of the struggle is having that patience to see long-term things through that can take a while. Thank you.
And Ms. Wilkins, what qualifications do you bring to the table to fulfill your duties of office?
Qualifications, I would say, have a lifetime history in this community. Again, we have different perspectives on things, but I think that I have a lot of touch with the average person of Urbana, and I have the experience here in the past few years on different commissions, on the city council, and educationally, as I mentioned, got degrees in biology, sustainable energy, business administration, and Spanish that provide a unique skill set. I've worked with stakeholders on a lot of different sustainability projects. I understand some of that infrastructure on a community level, and I think that a lot of those skills play into city council. In addition to, as I said, the dedication, taking every weekend to read the packet that's hundreds, if not over 1,000 pages, showing up prepared with questions, with comments, ready to think critically on every single issue that's before us every week for the past 4 years.
Mr. Colbert, what qualifications do you bring to the table to fulfill the duties of the office?
Well, I feel literally my entire life has allowed me to just be qualified to sit here at this table tonight and to run for office and to hopefully serve once again the residents of Ward 6. I grew up on a farm, and I've got an extremely strong work ethic. Even to this day, I work about 16 hours a day in my jobs. I've got a degree in master's in public administration with an emphasis in government policy. I know government. Government has been my life for years and years and years. I've lived a life of service. I have a servant heart. I wake up every single day wondering, how can I help my community better? I've been a manager for years, probably about 30 years of my professional career. I've led multi-million-dollar budgets, and my years in state government had many, many assignments, which allowed me to know the workings of government at many, many levels. I believe all these things, my problem, understood?
Mr. Colbrook, I have never had another candidate who's managed to chop off their sentences the minute the stop sign comes up, so thank you for that.
If nothing else, I'm a rules guy.
It's like-
I got you off your game, I'm sorry.
We're going to move from the general to the specific. Mr. Colbrook, how do you plan to address the alleys at Savannah Green?
I will address the alley situation at Savannah Green by assessing the current conditions. First, I'll ensure a thorough assessment of the alleys to ensure that the specific needs, such as lighting, maintenance, and draining issues, are addressed. I will seek community input. I'll engage residents to gather their feedback on what improvements are most needed, ensuring that solutions align with their concerns. I'll collaborate with city services. I'll work with the city departments to prioritize alley repairs, cleanups, and safety upgrades. The capital plan currently has the alley project on it, but there's no money allocated for it. We will improve safety. This could include better lighting, regular maintenance, and improve accessibility to ensure the alleys are safe and well-maintained for the residents. And there's sustainable solutions as well. I'll explore long-term solutions for alley maintenance, ensuring that they are consistently cared for to improve quality of life for the Savannah Green residents.
Thank you. Wilkins, how would you plan to address the alleys at Savannah Green?
Thank you. I understand that this is an important issue with the state of the alleys and the fact that in this unique neighborhood, the alleys are the main access for people into their houses and into their driveways. So these are not secondary, but these are primary transportation networks in this neighborhood. I have already supported the expansion in the city's capital improvement plan to include repairs, which I believe there is funding for some of the alleys in Savannah Green. We didn't have enough for full replacement of all the alleys, but we are starting with repairs based on priorities, which I encourage the Public Works to work closely with the residents to prioritize which alleys should be done first, and working with them to make sure that it's the best that we can do for that community. I think that we also need to consider careful consideration for new road projects. This is not the only instance where we have subpar road construction that was not built the way that it needed to be built in the first place. So I think that's also an important thing when we move forward on new or repairs on our roads, is being sure that things are done properly and built to last as long as possible.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkins, this is a question about homelessness. According to HUD, homelessness among families increased by 37% in 2024, and we've seen a similar rise locally with our local continuum of service providers for the homeless, counting 18 families actively unsheltered going into this winter. What will you do to ensure that none of Urbana's children have to sleep outside in cars, storage units, or abandoned buildings?
Thank you. It's an excellent question, and this is where there is some of that overlap in the Venn diagram between the city of Urbana and the Cunningham Township, which does a lot of the services. And when you elect your council person, we also sit on the town board. So those are kind of paired units of government there as far as your representative. On the Cunningham Town Board, there's been a lot of work done to ensure that no child in Urbana is outside or in cars or in insufficient housing. And as far as I've been informed, we have been able to meet that goal relatively consistently for the past few years. And that is with an extended network of support, having a presence in the Urbana public schools from the township to connect people to resources and identify some of these instances. And it's also important to have continued funding and resources. So I did recently support moving some of our available funds around, I believe in the tune of $1 million for another round of homeless service fundings that's available for the whole county, because this is also a county-wide, community-wide issue.
Thank you. Mr. Colbrook. According to HUD, homelessness among families increased by 37% in 2024, and we've seen a similar rise locally with our local continuum of service providers for the homeless, counting 18 families actively unsheltered going into the winter. What will you do to ensure none of Urbana's children have to sleep outside, in cars, storage units, or abandoned buildings?
I believe as a council member, the council as a whole, the city as a whole needs to make this a priority in our social service budget. I don't doubt a bit that it has increased 37%, and it's equal here locally. As small business owners of the Courier Cafe downtown Urbana, there is a large homeless population that exists in downtown Urbana. We know these people personally. They are our neighbors, they're our residents, they are our friends, they're our family, and we see them struggle on a daily basis, suffering food insecurity, home insecurity. There's a lot of issues that they deal with, mental health, addiction. In addition to adults, let's not forget the kids. We personally have housed kids. We have a young lady and her daughter currently in our house, living in one of the bedrooms in our basement because she has no home. We live this personally. So it's in there. It's important to know that we need to remember the kids. The sofa surfers that we've heard of. It's critically important to know that I will support 100% funding for programs that tackle homelessness.
Mr. Colbrook, how will you work together with other council members, and do you have experience working productively and collaboratively with other folks?
I think this is one of my greatest strengths. I have been known to absolutely effectively work with everyone. I've worked with Democrats, I've worked with Republicans, I've worked with virtually everybody. I believe, once again, respect is given and trust is earned. I love the dialogue, I love the diversity of opinion. I want to hear somebody's ideas, I want to hear what opinions they have, and for us to have that important, critical dialogue to try to solve a problem. The greatest strength we have is our diversity, and I don't assume that I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm assuming somebody else in the room probably has a better idea than I do. So I want to listen to what they have. Once again, God gave me one mouth and He gave me two ears. I'm going to listen more than I speak, and we can solve problems by collaborating together to come up with solutions to the problems that we have.
Thank you. Ms. Wilkins, how will you work together with other council members, and do you have experience working productively and collaboratively with other folk?
Thank you. I have various experience working with diverse stakeholders in community projects, education, and community leadership. I think it's important to focus on our common goals, to work collaboratively to address those. And I'm also not afraid to disagree and think for myself, and I think that's also an important piece. I think there have been issues where it's a rubber stamp sort of government, and I think there's also an important place for people to have unique thoughts, and I think that disagreement is not a bad thing. I think it's often very constructive, and I think, again, it's coming back to finding the common goals, hearing all the aspects of an issue, and coming up with the best solutions that we can collaboratively as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we have raced through these questions, so we're coming to the last one, and it's pretty early, but that's where we're at. So, Ms. Wilkins, what is your economic development plan?
Thank you. With economic development, this has been a goal on the City Council for the past 3 to 4 years and continues to be an essential part of our community. I think that supporting and bringing in new, local, small, minority, veteran-owned businesses is definitely a priority to diversify and expand our businesses in town. And I think whatever else we can do to support them, I think it's important to listen to our businesses and see what their needs are. We've had some incentives in our tax increment financing areas, and there were some funds throughout the pandemic recovery, but I think that we can and need to do more to support our local businesses and to continue that work outside of COVID recovery and continue that as a sustaining part of our funding.
Thank you. Mr. Colbrook, what is your economic development plan?
Once again, this is near and dear to my heart. My wife and I invested in Urbana. We invested in a local business downtown, the Courier Cafe. We live this on a daily basis. It's vitally important to have an economic development plan because it increases revenue, and that increased revenue funds vital city services. I would work to support small businesses, provide resources and incentives to help local businesses grow and thrive, revitalize key areas. I'd focus on underutilized spaces, starting with the Philo Road corridor, and expand all corridors in Urbana, as well as downtown and commercial districts, to attract new businesses and improve the local economy. And we would attract new investments, promote Urbana as a destination for businesses by highlighting our workforce, the infrastructure, and a quality of life, and develop workforce opportunities. We would want to expand job training programs to ensure residents have the skills needed for emerging industries. And then I would also encourage sustainable growth. I'd support developments that align with Urbana's values, balancing economic progress with environmental responsibility.
Thank you. So we now have closing statements. You have 2 minutes. We'll start with Mr. Colbrook.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters of Champaign County, the NAACP, the IMC, and most importantly, to the residents of Urbana who took the time to be here tonight. Your engagement is what keeps our democracy strong. These are interesting, if not stressful times. Now, more than ever, Urbana needs steady leadership, a representative who is knowledgeable, experienced, and ready to advocate not just for Ward 6, but for all Urbana. Good government should not be defined by what we won't do, but by what we can accomplish together. We must take a forward-looking approach, seeking solutions that move our community ahead rather than remaining stuck in division or inaction. Tonight, I've shared my vision for addressing the critical issues that will shape Urbana's future: public safety, infrastructure, affordable housing, and economic development. These aren't just talking points. They are the building blocks of a stronger, more vibrant Urbana. I am committed to working for all residents, regardless of their background or political ideology, because progress is something we build together. With your support, I will bring a steady hand, a collaborative spirit, a solutions-driven mindset to the Urbana City Council. Thank you again for being here, for your thoughtful engagement, and for caring about the future of our city. I ask for your support and look forward to working with you to move Urbana forward. Have a good night, and to all Urbana residents, please remember to vote by February 25th.
Ms. Wilkins.
Thank you for engaging with this debate tonight. I hope that you've learned more about your candidate choices and feel informed to get out and vote on or before February 25th. I think that it's essential for a representative to be informed on matters of the city, listen to public input, and engage in a transparent democratic process. I would be honored to continue to serve as your Ward 6 representative to stand for a safe community for all our residents. I'm sometimes oversimplified as an anti-police candidate. In reality, I have supported various pay increases, bonuses, and new positions in investigation, leadership, and training for the Urbana Police. Our city budget is almost maxed out, and any further expansions of UPD need careful consideration, public engagement, and policies in place. The current city council and city administration have been working for years towards a holistic approach to community safety that involves the development of alternative response task force. This alternative task force response model would send the appropriate professionals to calls for service, again, making it safer for vulnerable community members and relieving the workload of our police officers. We need to have a collaborative and critical discussion on how to further enhance public safety in a way that is safe for residents and financially sustainable. With recent changes on a national level, which are having a professional and personal impact on ourselves, our loved ones, and our community, it's increasingly important to take actions at a local level to protect all our residents, especially those most vulnerable. If reelected, I will continue to push for transparent and fair government, systems of public engagement, and a safe community for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you to our two candidates who have participated tonight and have volunteered to work for one of the most important jobs as a citizen, to be an elected official, and so we appreciate your cooperation in this forum process. Thanks again to the League of Women Voters, the NAACP, and IMC, and especially to Dr. Ruby Mendenhall for the poetry, which has given this event a unique Urbana flavor. And thank you to the Urbana City staff who've been very cooperative in setting up the event. Again, the recording can be found on votechampaign.org and on the League's YouTube channel, and also on UPTV. Very special thanks to our timers, Artemis James and Ralph Trimble. And just a reminder, it's not too late to register and vote. You can register all the way up to Election Day and vote that day. Information is available on the League website and the County Clerk's website for how to do this. Please vote. Thank you.